So again, continuing on this topic, a very central topic to understanding the Torah of Eretz Yisrael. So we saw quickly, for those that weren't here, we saw that the rabbis say in the Midrash that Ein Torah ke Torah Eretz Yisrael. There's no Torah like the Torah of Eretz Yisrael. So we have to understand what's the difference, what's different books, different Torah. God forbid, there's one Torah, there's one. But we saw it's a different reality, that which can be revealed and expressed in Eretz Yisrael. We saw the Gemara in Bava Batra, the Rav Zera himself, a giant Torah in Bavel. He came to Eretz Yisrael and he changed his mind halachically. He had a certain opinion, then he agreed with his opponent, so to speak, the other opinion. Not because he gave more proofs and explanations that he convinced him intellectually. He says, why did I change my mind? You see that the air of Eretz Yisrael makes wise. There's something in the air of Eretz Yisrael that enables this bigger wisdom. So we saw, as we went on, other sources, how the Midrash Tilim that says, if you want to see Torah, if you want to see Shekhinah in this world, see the divine, the oneness of this world, the world we live in, the fractured world, details, phenomenon, people, time, past, present, future. Where's there a one? Where's there one God, one source of all that? Everything seems to be chaotic, natural development, input, output, laws of nature. Where do you see any one in this diversity, multiplicity? You want to see the Shekhinah, the divine presence, the divine direction of history, of reality, the hand of God in this world? Learn Torah in Eretz Yisrael. And we saw other sources that Torah is in Eretz Yisrael. We saw even a very strong source from the Talmud Bavli in Chagigah, that since the Jews are in exile, you have no greater bitul Torah than this. No greater cancellation of Torah than this. So again, what do you mean? That's in the Talmud Bavli. No greater cancellation of Torah, nullification. We have Torah, we have rabbis, 2,000 years, we've been learning Torah, keeping Torah, fulfilling Torah, giants of Torah. But again, it's not a personal distinction, that they're not smart, they're not rabbis, they're not scholars. There's a reality. The exile we mentioned, it's like I gave the metaphor of the mountaintop, right? There's someone stands at the bottom of a mountain, the top of the mountain. He just stands at the top of the mountain, the same person, the same vision, the same IQ. But on the top of the mountain, he has a different vantage point, a different perspective, different reality. He can see more. There's a different holistic perspective. And that's what we'll see. The Eretz Yisrael provides this. We'll see the roots, the view from the roots above, as Rav Kook calls it. It's not from the details, from the particulars. Like you mentioned, someone groping in the dark. In the dark, he's blind, or he's in a dark room, and he gropes around, and he has to feel every detail. This is maybe a table, this is a cup. Then he turns on the light, and he goes directly to the conclusion. He sees exactly what it is, what he wants, what the goal, what he's looking for. The galut, we saw, to remind you for those that we left off, that the rabbis say, in the Talmud Bavli, in Sanhedrin 24, that the rabbis in Eretz Yisrael, manimim ze leze b'halacha. They're pleasant with each other in halacha. And those outside the land, Bavel, it says, this is in the Talmud Bavli, mechablim ze leze. Remember, that's what we left off with. They're attackers. They attack each other. So we explained that it's not, again, some personal distinction. They're not scholars. In the darkness, there is the groping in the dark. Each detail, each one's conclusion, each understanding, each perspective tries to analyze from the, what's it called, the deduction, right? From the bottom up, the details, like the scientific method. You get information, data, you collect it, you try to make a theory, hypothesis. And each time it's always in doubt. You're always like feeling, and like a piece by piece, putting it together, trying to draw a conclusion. As opposed to the Eretz Yisrael is this more, Rav Kook explains, a prophetic influence, this divine influx from the roots, from the illumination from above, from the collective, so to speak, the holistic perspective, down to the detail, illuminates the details. And then it's totally different. It's no longer this battle, this fighting, this argumentation. It's each one, you see this holistic, like the conductor sees the purpose, the goal of all the different instruments. He sees how they all fit into place. He sees how, well, I need you, you need, everyone needs the other. It's not like it's one against the other. It's not one attacking, my opinion is the truth, yours is not right, I'll prove you wrong, I'll prove my, that's the Talmud Bavli. That's this pilpul, we'll say this polemics, one against the other, so to speak. And machablim, they attack each other, so to speak. As opposed to the Eretz Yisrael, when the lights are on, you see the holistic picture, how each aspect, each different opinion is needed, is a part of this bigger orchestra that needs all the instruments. I need you, you need me. Not everyone is a drum. But in the beginning, each one learns his instrument, thinks that he's the only important one. The drum is the main thing, that's the main, and he learns that and focuses on that. It has to be that way. That's an important thing, because that's why he develops totally the total development of that individual instrument. But later comes the illumination from above. The Eretz Yisrael, this enables this holistic, like I said, this collective, the white light before it goes through the prism. This holistic view that sees how everything, I see how you have a play. Oh, you have an opinion. That's true. Oh, that has room. I see what you're saying. I see your point. That's Eretz Yisrael. They're pleasant with each other. They're not attacking. It's not one against the other. It's not threatening the other. It's when there's a holistic view, like it's everyone needs. You have a question?
Yes. It's bothering me from the previous week. Why? I'm not neglecting anything said here, but why is it that we are basing our halacha mainly on Talmud Bavli instead of Talmud Yerushalmi, even though Talmud Yerushalmi is considered the one that was, peacefully.
Excellent question. Why do we go by Talmud Bavli usually halacha? So there's a principle in halacha called halacha kabatrai. We go by the later opinion. The Talmud Yerushalmi was redacted, I think in the year 400, the Common Era. The Mishnah was in 200, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. All the oral debates, continuation, Rabbi Yochanan in Eretz Yisrael redacted and edited, so to speak, the Talmud Yerushalmi. 100 years later was the Talmud Bavli. And the rabbis explained this principle of the later opinion is he saw the previous, and he has the view that, so to speak, sees the previous and knows, and as the advantage of seeing the previous and seeing the different opinions that preceded him. Mm-hmm. But there's another, the Khatam Sofer, we'll get to that. He explains that the Talmud Bavli was accepted only after, so to speak, became the halachic source after it was accepted by in Eretz Yisrael. That's what he writes, the Khatam Sofer, one of the great. But we'll get to that more. It's a good question. Actually, the Rambam, though, Maimonides, he has this, call it holistic vision. Usually the main poskim, the rabbis, the Rif, all those, they brought down the laws, Shulchan Aruch, bring down the laws that apply even in the exile. That applied for the last 2,000 years in exile. Not the laws of the temple and sacrifices. The Rambam is very unique in that he has this, again, holistic view of, from A to Z, the beginning of the laws of the philosophical Yesodei Torah, down to the laws of kings and their wars and all the sacrifices and all the laws, not only that which pertain to today that can be fulfilled, but he has this totality, this corpus of Jewish law, the totality of all the oral law, all the halachot. And he, in many places, and the commentaries write on him, that he goes by the Yerushalmi in many places. Darko shel Rav Lifsok Yerushalmi, Talmud Yerushalmi. Because again, that's his holistic view that we have to come back to, we're getting back to. It's coming back to more of the study, and there was a purpose at a certain point. It's more difficult to learn because of that prophetic inclination. If someone, I don't know, geometry, anyway, you have to prove something. You go from the, the principles, like you have to give them something in geometry. No, you start with you start with something and you bring the proofs and you get to a certain conclusion. And you can follow that. Now, the Talmud Bavli goes through the proofs, the back and forth, the give and take. And from that, now you can extrapolate to new cases because you have the tools how which they got to their conclusion, and now it applies to new things, cars, airplanes, electricity on Shabbat. They didn't have that, but we have the how conclusions are adopted, and that's where the rabbis go. They don't just make up new ideas. I think it's forbidden. It all has to go by a precedent, so to speak, based on the principles that are in the oral law from Sinai in the oral law that were given down, that are principles that apply, like extrapolated to the new cases. The Yerushalmi this is the conclusion. How'd you get there? How can I apply that to a new case? I don't know. I just got, like I said, this illumination. This is the cup. How did you get there? How did you prove it? How do you know? We mentioned last week the difference between signs and Tviyut Ayin and this eye print. Remember, if you want to go to tell someone to see someone outside, you have to give him, he was wearing a red hat and a green eyes and red, whatever. You give him signs. You don't know the person, but you give him external signs to recognize. A process of elimination. He's not him. He doesn't have the red eyes, the green. But you don't know him. The Tviyut Ayin, what the rabbis call in the Gemara, is, this eye image, this collective, holistic, intuitive awareness. You know him. I see him. I see you from the back. I know that it's you. I don't know what color eyes, even I remember the details, but it's not a detailed, based on the accumulation of details, I get to who you are. I know you from above. I know you, the holistic. The Yerushalmi is this holistic view, this divinely more inspired, and therefore the conclusions are very quick. They're more we'll see, the polemic, so to speak. but that makes it harder to I say extrapolate from. You don't have any rules, you don't have any principles to continue that understanding. So that's what, anyway, we did, but the principle is not because it's a lower level, but the Talmud Yerushalmi says we go by halacha kabatrai. Well, we'll get back to that. It's a very good question. Maybe what you have on the top of the sheet. The Gemara in Bava Metzia. Again, we have Rav Zera. If you remember Rav Zera, he's the one, like I said before, in Bava Batra, that had certain, there was a discussion on the laws of inheritance, and he had a certain opinion, but he changed his mind. He agreed with the other rabbi when he came to Eretz Yisrael. And the Rashbam explained there that he saw the truth of the matter. Upon coming to Eretz Yisrael, he saw things differently. He saw the truth of the matter. Like standing at the top of the mountain, he saw, again, not more proofs, in, details, but now illumination of the whole. He saw the truth. This is the same Rav Zera, also the end of Tuvot, how he made Aliyah, his sacrifice, and endangering his to come to Eretz Yisrael. But nevertheless, there was underlined here in the Gemara in Bava Metzia, again, the Talmud Bavli, page 85, page Hey. Rav Zera ki salik l'Eretz Yisrael, right? We learned that already. Salik. What's salik? When he makes Aliyah, ole. When Rav Zera made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael, yativ mea tanita. He fasted 100 fasts. He sat in fasts for 100 days. Why? The lishtakach Gemara Bavla Minei. In order to forget the Talmud Bavli from him. Why? Ki heche de lo nitrei, that he shouldn't be disturbed by it. He fasted to get to this, for some reason, in other words, the reason is given here, to get rid of this perspective that he had. On the right, you see Rashi. What is the Gemara the Bavli? If you have any questions, what is this Gemara, the Babylonian Gemara? He says Gemara Shalanu, our Gemara, the Talmud Bavli that we're learning. What does it mean, lo need today? They shouldn't be disturbed by it. Rashi says, Kshalal Eretz Yisrael, when he made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael, Lidmod, to learn by Rav Yochanan, like I told you, he remained in Eretz Yisrael, and all the decrees and all the problems that were, he remained in Eretz Yisrael, sacrificed to stay here, and ultimately wrote, redacted the Talmud Yerushalmi. So Rav Zera came to Eretz Yisrael to learn by him. And the rabbis in Eretz Yisrael were not berei machloket. What's machloket? Controversy. They're not people of controversy. And they are pleasant with each other. It's a different approach. As we'll go on. He sees kashemen, like oil, like it says in Sanhedrin. That was the previous source we saw last week, in page 24, right in the Gemara in Sanhedrin. That they're pleasant with each other. It's a different, again, the other ones are attacking, you're wrong, I'm right, and this, I'll prove you're wrong, And the other ones, the Eretz Yisrael, wow, I see your point, you have a point, I have a point. See, the bigger picture maybe comes out of the two opinions together. Well, they're more pleasant. He came to Eretz Yisrael, they were more, again, what the Gemara says, based on the Gemara he says, more pleasant with each other, not argumentative with it. And they make the conclusions, the resolutions without attacking, without this same conflict of back and forth of attacking a negative and you're wrong, and they get to the conclusion. Understand is from, again, this illumination from above. If I can add the words here, we'll see where I'm getting that from. But you see from Rashi, it's this without this argumentative form of discussion. And Rav Zera, I'll read you what. In Rav Nachman Mibreslev, you've heard of Rav Nachman Mibreslev, in Likutei Moharan, 246. He talks about when someone must achieve an insight or ascend to a spiritual level, it is necessary to forget his earlier wisdom. There's a deep principle, and the Maharal brings it down a lot, what is called Heder Kodem Lahavaya. What's that mean? Heder, absence, precedes existence. The absence precedes the new. When you go to a new level, a bigger, higher existence, the previous stage, so to speak, falls apart. Not that it's destroyed or ruined or totally eliminated, but when you have to grow up, the childhood has to grow and now develop, and it's like it's lost and absorbed into a higher level. But we mentioned, like a spring, you pull back the spring, the bow and arrow, right? You pull it back in the other direction in order to get the potential energy to go farther in the other direction. In other words, the negative, the destruction, he talks about the temple being destroyed in order to bring about the third and final temple, the bigger. Each stage, the baby teeth fall out to make room for, in other words, and facilitate the coming out of the permanent teeth. Each stage, like they see, the rabbis give, they see the rots in the ground, disintegrate, so to speak, and then it comes and gets the minerals from all the soil and comes up and then grows. From the decay comes the bigger birth. It's a deep principle and applies to what's going on today also, how the nation of Israel comes back to itself, how it seems to throw away what it had before in order to get to a higher level, which is why we're studying to understand what is that higher level that we can provide the nation with and lead it without all the adolescent crisis of the throwing away of the childhood and rebelling, to get to the positive adult stage with minimum difficulties and challenges. But nevertheless, so Rav Nachman brings this principle. It applies to other things, but he says we see that you have to forget sometimes this earlier wisdom, as we find by Rav Zera, who fasted in order to forget the Babylonian Talmud. This is because he had to achieve an even a greater insight, that is the Torah of Eretz Yisrael. The footnotes in the English version of Likutei Moharan. Rav Zera, who had studied in the yeshivot of Babylon, went to live in the Holy Land, realizing that the strong dialectical approach favored in Babylon would conflict with the simpler, less polemical method of learning favored in the land of Israel. It's a different method. It's a different, because like I said, now you're standing at the top of the mountain again, so to speak. This potential, the ability to see things in a different perspective. It's not that you're different. The truth is, you're also different because you're also infused with this higher level, this energy of the divine. But we'll see. But even on this level of what the rabbis call hamakom gorim, right? We saw that. Remember the Gemara in Shabbat last week? We saw in the middle of the sheet that right, the rabbis said that they were laughing. The rabbis of Bavel, they dress up fancy because they're not scholars, right? I mentioned the Gemara, and Rabbi Yochanan says no, not because they're not scholars. They know Torah, but they dress up fancy because they're not in their place. The place is what causes what's called in Hebrew hamakom gorim. There's a reality, an existential, objective reality. The place is a place where God, this illumination of the divine, the white light, comes to this world and is diffracted all the different colors and all the different nations and peoples and cultures. But there's one place that God created that, again, this receptacle of this oneness. And that's why the ability to learn here, the approach to learning here is this unified approach, this holistic approach. It's one body with different limbs, different functions, but not one is attacking the other. They recognize the need for each other. A lot to talk about. So Rav Zera fasted in order to forget his previous studies. And we see that to attain a new level of Torah insight, that of the Holy Land, Rav Zera fasted so as to forget his earlier wisdom. Maybe I'll just bring you, there's a lot more to talk about on that, but I wanted to share with you maybe the words of the Maharal of Prague. Because we saw again, for those who weren't here, the Gemara, the Rav Zera says, you rabbis in Bavel are foolish. So it sounds like he's saying they're fools. Not because they're fools. Remember, we saw that he himself, when he was in Bavel, he didn't understand what the rabbis were saying. Remember the Gemara in Ketuvot 75, those who were here. But when he came to Eretz Yisrael, right, it says when you come to Eretz Yisrael, the Bavel even becomes even higher. It becomes quadruple your spiritual potential and energy and wisdom. So too, Rav Zera was brought the case that he was amongst the rabbis in Bavel. He didn't understand what they were saying. When he came to Eretz Yisrael, he called them, you foolish Babylonians. And here we saw the source for that in Pesachim. The Gemara says in Talmud Bavli that you rabbis in Bavel are foolish. Why? You sit in the land of darkness, therefore you say words of darkness. Again, it's not a subjective and individual distinction that you're a lower level, you're not the same rabbis and scholars. It's the same person, but when you're sitting in the land of darkness, you have these blocks, these blinders. You're sitting under after the prism. You see a little piece of light. You see the green, the red, the purple, the violet. It's harder to see the unified white light. You're in the place of darkness. You're in this room of darkness. The illumination of Torah, the divine will, this light of God comes to the world through the vehicle of Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. That's what we said on Shabbat, right? Over and over again, we repeat that summary of all the understanding and how God connects to this world. How do we connect to Hashem? We say in Shabbat and Mincha, right? Ata echad v'shimcha echad goy echad ba'aretz. You're one that's transcending beyond, and your name is one, your ideal is one. There's unified, grand goldness of harmony, of elevation, of plugging in this whole world to the Hashem. How does that come about? Through the nation who is also one. There's a nation that is this, the receptacle of that oneness above is received in this worldly phenomenon called the nation of Israel. But where? Ba'aretz. The Rabbi say, Ba'aretzim goyachad. In the land they are one. So God created this place that mentioned these bridges that enable this connection, which is an amazing phenomenon, not logical, not rational, of connecting the finite to the infinite. Like we say the bracha after the bathroom, right? Mafli lasot. The Rama says, explains in the Shulchan Aruch, that connects the physical to the spiritual, the soul to the body. It's unbelievable. How does the infinite fit into finite? But that's the amazing thing, that God enabled this connection of us, of this world, to the divine. And that vehicle is called the nation of Israel and the land of Israel. And the Torah of Eretz Yisrael is that what is available here, that unified holistic vision before it's fractured, before it breaks up, before it's... So you're sitting in the land of darkness, my metaphor before, like you're sitting in the land of darkness, a dark room. So you're groping in the dark and trying to figure out things, which is very good. The Talmud Bavli is, and we'll see there's an advantage to that. Because that blind person is more sensitive to things that we didn't pick up. We see the bigger picture, we see exactly what we want. We don't notice all the details on the way. There's an advantage, the rabbis say, to this polemics and these details. And that's part of maybe why the halacha is like the Bavli. Because it's because they're in the darkness, they can only focus, they have to focus on, all they have is these details, but by that they go down to the depth of every detail. And ultimately, their goal is to how those details are connected to a bigger ideal of universal perfection, elevation. And that's what we have to provide for the nation of Israel today. Because as we're turning in the redemption process is to return to that full grandeur of understanding the bigger ideal. What's it all about? Judaism, not just the do's and don'ts. Do this or else, whatever. That doesn't satisfy. The child, that's enough. He just has to know what to do. Doesn't understand, why am I alive? What's the purpose of creation? He just wants to live and be happy and get along, and the muscles are developing. That's how it's supposed to be. But later he has to understand, and he wants to understand, and he demands understanding, and we won't be able to continue as a obedient child without understanding what's it all for. Why am I doing this? And so too the Jewish nation, and the rabbis talk about how this developmental process towards that we're coming back to now. There's a demand of the nation to understand why. What are we doing here? What's it all for? What is the land of Israel? What is the Torah and the mitzvot? What are the tiny details? I want the bigger things, change mankind, communism, socialism, to help society. Tikkun olam, they took from us. What is tikkun? How do you fix tikkun olam? Dafka, these details are the finite, the tips of the extensions of this bigger, supernal, divine, infinite ideals that come to this world through these exact channels and chains, or channels of vehicles of what we call the Torah and the mitzvot. But we see sometimes only the details, the final conclusion. I think that's all there is. These branches, without the source of life, without their roots, they dry up. That's what the rabbis say in the Tikkun Zohar. That in the future the Torah will become dry if you don't bring into it the wisdom of the higher wisdom, understanding of what's it for. Not just how to do, what to do, but why? Why should I, just to get reward and punishment? I'm not afraid anymore. A generation that is willing to suffer and sacrifice, willing to go into swamps and dry up the malaria, but they want to live for ideals. And all you tell them, no, just do this and don't ask questions. They won't suffice, not because in other words, it's a good reason it doesn't suffice, because now they're maturing. The nation is now at the point where the knowledge of God is supposed to fill the earth. Not just the robots, the robotic fulfillment of the commandments. Do what you're told to do and don't ask questions. We do it if we don't understand, because it's the absolute truth. It's good, but there's the point that the adolescence grows up and that's not why. And what's the beauty of it, the grandeur, to identify with it. God wants us to, not just to do. He has angels that do what he wants without any questions. And he has animals that do. Man is in the middle that has free will. He wants us to get to understanding, the identification with it, and living with all our heart and soul. And that comes with the Rambam, the Ahavat Hashem, the love of God, as the Rambam says, comes by the knowledge that you are aware of the divine, the ideals, the goal, the grandeur of Hashem and his purpose of creation. And it's there. It's not like it's some new ideas. We have to make up some new philosophy to explain to people that to do tshuva, do the mitzvot, because if you're not afraid of reward and punishment, of burning in hell, so I'll give you some philosophical explanation. But that's the deeper aspect of Torah, which maybe I'll read you. The Shlach Kadosh. I had it here somewhere. The Shlach Kadosh. Again, there's so many sources I want to share with you, but since I just mentioned that topic just now. The Shlach Kadosh is one of the 5 in Jewish history known as the Hakadosh, the holy. We mentioned a few, not that there are many holy people, holy rabbis throughout Jewish history, but there are 5 that's part of their name, so to speak. Right there, that's given, like there's Moshe, Rabbeinu, Avram, Avinu, Yosef HaTzadik, and there's 5 that are like called. There are many, again, as an adjective, so to speak, there are many that were holy, but that are part of their name, even, you could say. So one of them is the Shla Kadosh. It's named after his book, the Shnei Luchot HaBrit. Shnei Luchot HaBrit is Shin Lamed Hey, Shla Kadosh. Rabbi Shai Horowitz, 400 years ago, came to Eretz Yisrael. An amazing book of halacha and Kabbalah and Musar. It's encyclopedic, a giant. It's something very unique. Who are the other 4? You remember? Ever called HaKadosh? Ariya Kadosh. That's 2. Or Chaim HaKadosh. Oh. That's it? 2 more. Okay, keep it homework. 1 more in Tzfat. I'll leave you after homework. No, I won't. Anyway, the Rabbeinu HaKadosh, who wrote the Mishnah, rabbis would explain why he's Kadosh, called. And the Alshich HaKadosh, the Alshich also living in Tzfat at the time of the Arizal. It says he and the Beit Yosef, the Arizal and the Beit Yosef used to go to the lectures of the Alshich HaKadosh in Tzfat and Shabbat. It's a book we have of his teachings, of Torah Moshe, the Alshich HaKadosh. So anyway, the Shla Kadosh, what does he write? He brings down the Gemara from Ketuvot that we saw about one of, like Abai says, one of them in Eretz Yisrael is worth like more than 2 of us in Bavel. Remember? And then Rabbi says, yes, but one of us who makes Aliyah is worth twice of them, which means that when you make Aliyah, we said you quadruple, right? Eretz Yisrael is equal to 2x. When you're X in Bavel, you're 2x in Eretz Yisrael. When you come to Aliyah, you're twice those in Eretz Yisrael, which is 2 times 2x. You're 4x. You became from X to 4x, which we saw in the case of Rabbi Yirmiyah, how he looks down at that. Nevertheless, so he brings down this Gemara, and he says it's hard to translate, because as you get closer to the roots, which is not so in the exile, which is by the distance. Like I said, or the Maral says in Netivat Olam, I want to read you also, chapter 13, Netivat Torah, the Maral Miprag, that everything in the middle is one, right? The circumference, periphery is the dots, so to speak, around, it's equidistant, but the middle is only one. One is identified with the center. And the center, that one, is Eretz Yisrael, in the middle of the world, not necessarily geographically, but like the heart or whatever. It's like it's a certain center. Spiritual center, like the point that is in the middle is in the circle. So too, Eretz Yisrael is like the center point of the circle, and all the different lines that come out of it. And therefore, Eretz Yisrael causes this unity of the Talmidei Chachamim that we said before in the Sanhedrin 24 that we're talking about. There's unity, there's harmony, there's working together, not a competition. When there's no nucleus and all the electrons, free electrons, they're all separate and opposing, and they see themselves as independent forces. When there's one force, when the conductor, when the neshama is coming down, then all the different parts of the body, all the different aspects are unified. They're all part of one. There's no room for competition. I'm jealous of you. You're different. Yes, we're different, but each one of us make the harmony. They complement each other, as opposed to opposition. It's complementary. That's what Eretz Yisrael causes. That's the reality. Because as we say, we quoted Yeshayahu 42, Noten neshama la'am aleh. Give the neshama to this nation upon the land. That's how the neshama comes to this world. That's how this connection, this amazing super-rational connection of godliness to worldliness. There's a geographical location that God created on the planet that is in space and beyond space. We talked about that, right? The bridge, we call it Einstein-Rosen bridge, but like space and beyond space. Like in time, there's Shabbat, which is as if one of the days of the week, but it's not. It's the connection of the week to something beyond. How to connect to Hashem, how to plug in this world to something beyond. So Eretz Yisrael was created with that objective reality. It's not a subjective thing. Like we said, metal conducts. Plastic, you have a piece of plastic that doesn't conduct. 2 pieces of metal conduct. Eretz Yisrael, the Jews in Eretz Yisrael, are this conductor of godliness. different context of conductor, not the conductor organ. Conduct electricity, conduct divine energy and goodness and holiness and oneness, this white light, this centrality, this oneness of the world. In the land of Israel they are one. Here is where this unity is the essence of Eretz Yisrael. That is the content, that is the quality of the land of Israel, is that it's this one, this central organ that is the roots. It's like I said before, the white light before it goes to the diffraction. The world of what the rabbis call Alma de Piruta, the world of separation, of scatteredness, of myriad diversity of pieces that look to be separate. Then there's room for hatred and jealousy. There's also has very moral, maybe we'll get to the moral ramifications. When you have this perspective, you realize that all the world is one. It's all different parts of one bigger harmonious orchestra. The love of all, the connection to all, the care for all, as opposed to when everything is a detail, everything is separate. Each and I'm out for myself. The materialistic point of view, it's all each one alone and separate, and one for, I don't know, out for himself, whatever, the prati, the selfish, the egoistic perspective, the materialism that just for the physical is seen as it's all there is. So there we see each one is separate. I'm separate from you. I don't feel your pain. You're separate. You're sitting over there. But if you have the spiritual understanding that we're one roots, we're actually one unit in different limbs. We're all different parts of one unity. Right? The famous Talmud Yerushalmi in the Darim, Yerushalmi. Right, remember we cut a piece of meat, gives the metaphor of cutting a piece of meat and someone slips, like you're hitting a hammer, and usually sometimes you hit your left hand. And the Gemara says, will the left hand now avenge the right hand? Cut back and hit back the right hand? He says, obviously not, it's one. We're two parts of the same thing. Not only if I hurt, you hurt. If I hit the right hand, now both hands are in pain. It's me, it's not something else. But when you're anesthetized, so to speak, you see each one, I'll get back to you, hit me. I get back to you. The Gemara is asking there, how can we fulfill this law of lo tikom v'lo titor, not to take revenge, not to bear a grudge even. To take revenge is actually do something. Even to bear a grudge, to remember what you did to me, I remember. I'll give you, right? I'll lend you. You didn't want to lend me, the Gemara gives the example. You didn't want to lend me this fork that I asked for, this pitchfork, whatever. But I'm going to give it to you anyway, even though you didn't give it to me. So even that you're not to do, to remember. See? So how can we not? We're humans. You want to take revenge. Someone hits you, you want to hit him back, or you at least remember what he did. He says no, because the Gemara says if it's one piece, you're one unit. It's not something, you're not against someone else. That's you. But that's the vision of Eretz Yisrael. But that's the reality of Eretz Yisrael. That oneness, that bemet, you're all pieces of one whole. But outside the one, the neshama is not illuminating. Then each one is seen. We're still part of this spiritual unity, but it's not in practice. Now the limbs are fractured, like the dry bones prophecy of Yechezkel. We're like separate bones. Each one sees himself as me, ani v'afsiod, me alone. For my interest, I'm worried about me. And the Torah also, we'll see, the Torah also is understood as that which deals with an individual for your physical and spiritual benefit. Me and my Torah, which the Gemara in Brachot, page 8a, in the Talmud Bavli, it says, since the Jews are exiled, the temple is destroyed, God only has his 4 cubits of halakha. 4 cubits of halakha is the individual domain, right? The 4 cubits you have on Shabbat, you'll have to carry, because that's your possession, that's your domain, individual. That's all there is. God's name of elevating creation, of infusing all and elevating, uplifting all. No, in the exile, all he has is these 4 cubits of halakha, the private domain. That's the exile, by definition, not because you're not a good person, you're not moral, but that's the reality of exile, that you're after the pieces, after the light is fractured to different colors. You only have a piece, and each one sees himself, and it causes, again, a lot of ramifications in the perspective and outlook. And Rab Zera fasted 100 days to get rid of that, to rise up to now Eretz Yisrael. So we said before that Eretz Yisrael, when you rise to the top of the mountain, it's not automatic. Remember I told you it's a necessary condition, not a sufficient condition. Just being in Eretz Yisrael doesn't mean automatically now you see this bigger perspective, you're a holistic, harmonious unity of seeing the all, loving all, connected to all. Like echad is the same gematria of ahava, right? The echad, the word one in Hebrew is equal to the same numerical equivalent of the word love. Because the oneness of all causes the love of all. You're all connected to all. You're all one. You're all parts of one. But nevertheless, what was I getting to? How it's not automatic that you just got to Eretz Yisrael. Like I said, you go to the top of the mountain, but if you keep your eyes closed, you still won't see farther. You're not utilizing that advantage. The advantage is there. Rav Zera, it's not enough to come to Eretz Yisrael. He fasted. He did a lot of work to get rid of that, what do you call it, the polemic and the attacking perspective. Because that's what he was raised with, he used to. And he had to forget all that. Not to forget what he learned, the books, the studies, but he had to forget that outlook, so to speak, that perspective that prevented him from seeing, wow, the grandeur of what Eretz Yisrael provides, the top of the mountain, this view from above, the view from the roots above. So with the Shlach Kadosh, he says, now here at Eretz Yisrael, you're closer to the roots, to that one, to that center. This is connected to Lashon HaKodesh, the Hebrew language. And when you're in the dark, though, however, you have to take the light out of the darkness. You have to find the pieces, like I said, groping in the dark in my English. And that's why there's more machloket. And that's just like the Sanhedrin, the Gemara in Sanhedrin 24 says that the Rabbi in Eretz Yisrael are more pleasant, and they have the light of Torah, they like oil, nice and pleasantness. They don't get hot with pilpul, like in Bavel. Pilpul, again, this polemics, the back and forth. And therefore they are dealing with what? And also the ramifications of the study. Therefore they are dealing more with the Sodot Maseh Merkava, Shu Davar Gadol. Right? They learn the secrets of Torah, the deeper wisdom of Torah, the ideals of Torah, the neshama of Torah, what the rabbis call it. Or the Gemara in Sukkah 28, what he's referring to. That is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai knew, at the level of 80 students of Hillel. They were the 20 top, the 20 bottom, and the 40 in the middle. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, I forget what he was at a certain level, the lowest of the middle level, or the lowest of the wall. Anyway, he knew everything, the whole list of what he knew. All the secrets of Torah, the halakha, everything. It's a list of how the speech of the angels, speech of the birds, of the tree, everything of knowledge. And it says there, he knew the big thing and the small thing. The Davar Katan and the Davar Gadol. So the rabbis say, what is the Talmud Bavli in Sukkah 28? What is this big thing? That's the secrets of Torah, Maseh Merkava, the secrets of how God created the world, the purpose of creation, what is the goal of creation, where God is leading the world, how he leads the world to that perfection. And what is the small thing then? I should have started with that. The small thing, that's Havayot Abai V'Rava. That is the polemics of the Gemara, the Talmudic debate, of the back and forth, the details. You say yes, I say that, you say the opposite. All this give and take back and forth, that's the small thing. So in Eretz Yisrael, they deal with the big thing, he says, Rav the Shlach Kadosh. Because again, when you have that bigger light, you deal with the bigger perspective, the holistic view. But in the darkness, you deal with the details. Because that's all there is. In other words, you're in the world of the darkness, like he says, Rav Yirmiyah. He says, therefore, but look what he says here, which connects to what you asked. But because one of us, that learned all these ways of the pilpul, learned all the details and the analysis of each instrument, like he learned it to the end. My instrument and only mine, I just focus on and the details, they'll see, the pilpul. And he goes to Eretz Yisrael to learn the secrets of Torah, the bigger ideals. He is like two of us. Remember when he said the one who makes Aliyah is like two of them in Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because he has now the advantage of both. He has this holistic perspective, but also how it's connected to all the details. Sometimes there can be a danger of this holistic view, and you mizalzel, you not look down upon, but you less focus on the details. I love this bigger perspective, the universal elevation of perfection of mankind and humanity. And sometimes you talk and learn about the bigger wisdom of Torah, which is very attractive and very, satisfying, so to speak, to deal with these bigger ideas. But then you can sometimes ignore or pay less attention to the details. Shabbat, kashrut, the meticulous, all these little things. I want the bigger picture. There's a danger of that. People also today, they jump to Kabbalah, they go about the bigger thing. The halakha, that's it's not important. I'm learning the bigger picture. But the bigger picture is realized and manifested only through the details. And that's the amazing of the deeper wisdom of Kabbalah, is that it teaches you the universal, the infinite significance of every detail. How every detail is so important and why it's exactly that way. Why the strings are tied in the Ashkenazi ever 7, 8, 11, 13. Why is it so everything is exact? Now, in order for this, like in science and medicine, the heart, I don't know, everything to function properly, everything has to be in its place. What's the difference? Move this over here, this little part of their brain over here. Everything is exact where it is and how it's built. So too, the spiritual, call it the lofty, the shama, the spiritual essences and illumination to this world comes through exact conduits that are created, like in the Mishkan that we're going to read about soon. That like Bezalel knew how to find every detail of the vessels to be built properly. Every time it says he did like God told Moshe, right? After every vessel it says there, he did like according to what God told Moshe. It just tells in general, he built it properly. No, every vessel was exact, has to be exactly to be this receptacle for the divine, to be a vehicle, a conduit for that divine energy of goodness to come to this world. So we didn't finish the Slav, and I don't keep you though to Mincha. We'll try to continue with that, and maybe a few more. So maybe by next week I'll even try to translate some of them. We have to get back to the sheet. We have a lot more. There's so much more. B'ezrat Hashem. It's hard. Want to push the button there?